Welcome, Americans. I'm here to go ahead and talk to you about a few things. I'm also here because I know our country is going through a rough time. I know that things are tough, and I know that there's uncertainty, worry, and fear. And what I hope to be is I hope to be a calming agent in this time of need. I hope that my voice to you will be able to explain to you the truths, the stories, and the documents that we may cover. I think it's important to, during this time, have a discussion about what is going on in our country politically. I think what we need to do first is we need to realize that authoritarianism, totalitarianism, fascism, and tyranny is not on the way. It's here. It's here in our government. We are living in this time of tyranny. Accept it for what it is. It's not on the way. It exists, and it is here in America. I think this is something that we have constantly fundamentally struggled with throughout our history. But now it has grappled us and taken a hold of the people's government. I could give you many different examples, some that you know about, some that you don't, that explain this tyrannical government that we have going on. What is being done to the people? What is being done to our society, our culture? Both those who are part of it and those who are about to be part of it are experiencing. We are having American citizens being killed in our streets. We are having people being shot for what they disagree with, what they disagree on. We are having our Constitution under attack daily. Our very form of government is being threatened. Power is being consolidated with the executive. He is a tyrant. He is a king. You cannot change that definition. You cannot whitewash it. Call it what it is. A king, a tyrant, a dictator. January 6, 2021 was a perfect example of that. And in my opinion, I think that's one of the reasons why we're here. We whitewashed it. We looked at it as if it was just another part of our history, just another piece to be forgotten. But ultimately, I think it has led to some severe power issues within our government and has ultimately given our executive the utmost tyrannical power that he could possibly have. Who can fix this? We can. We look to our government to solve a lot of our problems. And I think that's part of our problem as well. No one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to save me. Empires rise and fall with time. If you think of the United States as an empire, well, as I said, time and again, empires have fallen. But the reasons why they fall are where we may differ. And I think that at the power of you and me can fix it. We can make a change for the better. We must understand and accept that we are no longer free. We are no longer a free government. We are no longer a republic that is under constitutional law. Our Constitution means nothing. in this current state and age. It is done with, it is over. History has gotten us there. I hate to say that, and I don't want to believe that it's true. But we have acknowledged this document merely as a piece of paper than as a form of government. And it took one man's rule to do so. Right now, we are not united. We are extremely divided. And that division has been exploited by the current administration. With that being said, I would like to take a moment, if you would have me, to explain to you of where we were before we became who we are right now. There are many documents throughout our history that have talked to us and spoken to us, both through people and written word, of what the idea of America was supposed to be. And I think it is worth, at this time in our history, to go through those documents, listen to those words again, and understand what we lost and what we once were. I will start with the Declaration of Independence. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government. Laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for the future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble of terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voices of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war and in peace friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in general, Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all the other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That was the Declaration of Independence, 1776. For those of you who don't know, our first Constitution was known as the Articles of Confederation in 1777, shortly after the Revolutionary War. I will read that for you now. To all to whom these presents shall come, we, the undersigned delegates of the states affixed to our names, send greeting. Whereas the delegates of the United States of America in Congress assembled did, on the 15th day of November in the year of our Lord, 1777, and in the second year of independence of America, agree to certain articles of confederation and perpetual union between the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, and Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia in the words following: Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union between the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, and Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And whereas it hath pleased the great governor of the world to incline the hearts of the legislatures, we respectively represent in Congress to approve of and to authorize us to ratify the said Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, know ye that we, the undersigned delegates, by virtue of the power and authority to us given for the purpose, do by these presents, in the name and in behalf of our respective constituents, fully and entirely ratify and confirm each and every of the said Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, and all and singular the matters and things therein contained. And we do further solemnly plight and engage the faith of our respective constituents, that they shall abide by the determinations of the United States in Congress assembled on all questions which by the said Confederation are submitted to them and that the articles thereof shall be inviolably observed by the states we respectively represent, and that the Union shall be perpetual in witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands in Congress. Done at Philadelphia, in the state of Pennsylvania, the 9th day of July, in the year of our Lord, 1778, and in the 3rd year of the independence of America. What I just read to you was both the Declaration of Independence that essentially got us started, meaning we separated from a king, a monarchy, tyranny. We then established Articles of Confederation after the Revolutionary War, in which we established our first government, our first unity. That in turn would not last very long. The Articles of Confederation would prove to be too weak to essentially control a united country. It would fall to the likes of fighting states. A weak central government, as well as rebellion. With that, we adopted the Constitution of the United States that replaced the Articles of Confederation. I will read the preamble of the Constitution right now. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That was the preamble to the United States Constitution, our current form of government that is said to be the law of the land, but is being torn apart by a tyrant. We have had other times in our history in which different groups of people who were disenfranchised that decided to develop their own forms of essentially eliminating a hierarchy, eliminating tyranny. It is important to remember that these voices are equally us. For that, I will read you the Declaration of Sentiments, also known as the Seneca Falls Convention Declaration of Sentiments. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one portion of the family of man to assume among the people of the earth a position different from that which they have hitherto occupied, but one to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes that impel them to such a course. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of those who suffer from it to refuse allegiance to it, and to insist upon the institution of new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their duty to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their security. Such has been the patient sufferance of the women under this government, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to demand the equal station to which they are entitled. The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward woman, having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over her. To prove this, let facts be submitted to the candid world. Now, in view of this entire disenfranchisement of one half the people of this country, their social and religious degradation, in view of the unjust laws above mentioned, and because women do feel themselves aggrieved, oppressed, and fraudulently deprived of their most sacred rights, we insist that they have immediate admission to all the rights and privileges which belong to them as citizens of these United States. In entering upon the great work before us, we anticipate no small amount of misconception, misrepresentation, and ridicule. But we shall use every instrumentality within our power to effect our object. We shall employ agents, circulate tracts, petition the state and national legislatures, and endeavor to enlist the pulpit and the press in our behalf. We hope this convention will be followed by a series of conventions embracing every part of the country. Firmly relying upon the final triumph of the right and the true, we do this day affix our signatures to this declaration. The Declaration of Sentiments, written in 1848 on behalf of women in America. Not too long after that, more or less 20 years, we would enter a civil war between North and South. Abraham Lincoln, our president at the time, at least in the northern states, would give us what is known as the Gettysburg Address shortly after the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather, sorry. But I can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. I think that is something worth thinking of. And that was shortly after the battles of Gettysburg in November of 1863. I'm going to jump a little bit more forward into the 20th century. As a reminder of where we came from, it is important to know that we have struggled both here at home and abroad. We must know that we have resisted totalitarianism before us currently, and it is important to be reminded of that fact. I will refer you to General Dwight D. Eisenhower's comments, Order of the Day, 1944. You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hope and prayers of liberty loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and the security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained, well equipped, and battle hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940 and 41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. World War II would end, and then roughly 20 years later, we would enter into a civil rights movement, even though that was something that had been ongoing for well over 100 years prior. For that, I will reference Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech in 1963. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree is a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still badly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years ago later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their adulthood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I say to you today, my friends, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governors having its lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with the little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with the new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every city and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, great God Almighty, we are free at last. That was to be a reminder of who we once were. Let us not forget that as I read all those documents, one thing or several things were true. Liberty and justice for all, and the fact that government works for the people. The states got together and established this government. The states gave the government its power, its permission to govern. The people gave the power to the states to make those decisions. And as a result, the federal government. That doesn't mean we wouldn't have struggles. We obviously have. As this year goes along, 250 years of American history are recognized. We began our history under kingship, under monarchy, under tyranny. 250 years later, the American people have forgotten where we were, where we came from, what we were supposed to be. We gave up our democratic government. We stopped believing in others. We stopped believing in the power of the idea of freedom. What we have come down to is brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, immigrant against citizen. That must change, and it can change. We've seen it several times, not the exact form, but we have resisted it every time. So as tyranny reigns, look to our history. Understand that you are not alone. Understand of what this country was supposed to be.